I knew the joke was coming before my sister even opened her mouth. We were barely seated at Rowan's Prime Steakhouse, the place my parents treated like their personal kingdom, when she leaned back in her chair, twirled her wine glass, and said loudly enough for the servers to hear, "Can someone bring Emma the student menu? She still hasn't figured out adult life." A couple of nearby tables glanced over. My mom covered her mouth, laughing into her napkin. My dad shook his head in that isn't-she-funny way he always did when Madison mocked me. Me? I just froze with my fork hovering above my plate. I'd trained myself for this. The polite smile. The silent endurance. The performance of "it doesn't hurt." "That's cute," I said quietly, pushing air through a stiff smile. Madison grinned like she'd scored a point. "Come on, Em, it's not an insult if it's true." She stabbed her salad as if my dignity had ruined the lettuce. Mom chimed in next. "Sweetheart, you tried that thing. What was it? That online creative shop?" She waved her hand like she was shooing an insect. "Sparkle something?" "It was Sparkline Studio," I corrected softly. "A branding and digital strategy service." Madison snorted. "It lasted, 2 months? We were just glad when you stopped pretending to be a boss girl." My chest tightened. I tried not to let it show. They didn't know the nights I ate crackers because I invested grocery money into software trials. They didn't know about the meetings I took from my car, windows rolled up so no one heard my shaking voice. They didn't know the clients I chased, the ones who ghosted, the ones who stayed. They didn't know I wasn't pretending. Dad cleared his throat. "All right, that's enough." But he was smiling, always smiling when the target was me. "It's not her fault she's not built for pressure," he added casually. "Some people just don't have the wiring for business. Nothing wrong with being an employee." The words sliced deeper than Madison's teasing ever could. Not built for pressure. Not wired. Not enough. He'd been feeding me that belief since I was old enough to sit at this table. I closed my eyes briefly and inhaled through my nose. "Don't react, not tonight." Madison flicked crumbs off her dress and leaned forward. "So, Em, what are you doing now? Still doing that freelancer thing?" I straightened my napkin. "I consult for manufacturing and supply chain companies, digital systems, marketing pipelines." She cut me off with a laugh. "So, social media posts." I lifted my gaze and met hers. "I increased one distributor's annual revenue by 7 figures last year." Her chewing stopped mid-bite. Dad's head turned so fast I heard his neck crack. "Which distributor?" "Grayson Transit." His eyebrows lifted. Even he knew the name. Grayson's recent growth was the talk of the industry. "You did that?" he asked. "I helped," I said with a shrug. He studied me for a few seconds, the first real interest he had shown me in years, before brushing the moment aside. "Well, don't get too proud. One lucky project doesn't make you a leader." My throat tightened. Lucky? If only he knew. They didn't know what I'd been building behind the scenes. They didn't know what I'd signed 3 weeks earlier. They didn't know the conversations I'd had with someone very important, someone desperate to exit a business I knew far better than they thought. "Anyway," Mom said with a dramatic sigh, "we just want stability for you, honey." "Predictability," Madison added. "No more weird phases." I almost laughed. If only they knew the kind of phase I had entered. I kept my tone even. "My expectations are different now." Madison raised a brow. "Different how?" But before I could respond, Dad lifted his phone with a frown. "I got a strange email from the accountant today," he muttered. "Something about updated tax files for the company. Your name was in the subject line, Emma, no idea why." A flicker of electricity shot through me. "Here it begins." I sipped my water. "You'll figure it out." Dad squinted at me like I was suddenly speaking a foreign language. "Figure what out?" Madison snorted. "Probably a mix-up. She probably clicked something wrong. Right, Mom?" Mom nodded rapidly. "Of course. The accountant must have attached something by mistake." Dad didn't speak. He just stared at me. The first crack of suspicion. The first moment he felt out of the loop. I kept my voice calm. "It's nothing bad. Something you'll want to read, though." Madison rolled her eyes. "Stop being mysterious. You're making it dramatic on purpose." "I'm being patient," I corrected. She hated that answer. Hated that she couldn't make me flinch anymore. I didn't say another word for the rest of dinner. Not when they bragged about Madison's upcoming promotion. Not when they mapped out her future office. Not when Dad claimed his company, Northline Distribution, was stronger than ever. He had no idea how wrong he was. Supply chain strain. A retiring partner? A buyout offer? A silent investor who wasn't actually silent? Me. I listened. Quiet. Steady. Already knowing the truth. By tomorrow morning, nothing at this table would look the same. After dessert, Dad paid the bill early. Too early. His impatience was obvious now. He wanted to check that email. As we walked to the parking lot, Madison grabbed Mom's arm and whispered loudly, "Watch it be a typo." Mom laughed. "That's our Emma." I didn't respond. Not a single muscle twitched. At Dad's car, he paused and turned toward me. If something's going on with my finances or the business, I expect honesty. I met his eyes head on. "You'll have it," I said softly. "Very soon." Madison threw her hands up. "Oh my God, you're impossible." "No," I said calmly. Just finished explaining myself to people who don't listen. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Dad slid into his car, jaw clenched, mind racing. This time I didn't walk away feeling small. This time they were the confused ones. This time they didn't know what I was capable of. And I was finally done apologizing for that. I didn't sleep at all that night. Not because I was scared, but because I knew exactly what kind of storm would hit the moment my father opened that email. I sat at my small apartment desk, laptop glowing in the dark, watching the city lights blink like warning signals outside my window. At 7:42 a.m., my phone lit up. Dad calling. I didn't pick up. He called again, then again. By the sixth attempt, he finally sent a text. "We need to talk. Come to the office now." I stared at it, my heartbeat strangely calm. I grabbed my coat, tied my hair back, and stepped into the cold morning air with one quiet, steady thought. This time, I'm not the one walking in powerless. Northline Distribution's headquarters sat in the industrial district. Big concrete building, a row of trucks, and a worn sign that desperately needed repainting. Dad always said he'd get to it when things stabilized. They never stabilized. I entered through the side door. Every employee who saw me stiffened with an almost instinctive fear, like something big had just shifted and no one warned them. Dad's assistant, Carla, rushed toward me. Her eyes were wide, confused, almost panicked. "Emma? He's in the conference room. He's been pacing since 6. Didn't even drink his coffee." "I'm not here to cause trouble," I said gently. "Oh, sweetheart," she whispered. "I don't think trouble cares." She stepped aside. I walked to the conference room. Before my hand even touched the door, Dad's voice exploded from the other side. "Get in here!" I entered. Dad stood at the head of the table, sleeves rolled up, face red, the email printed and thrown across the table like a crime scene photo. 2 board members sat stiffly, Mr. Dalton and Mrs. Reyes. Both looked like they'd aged 10 years in 2 hours. Dad pointed at me with a trembling finger. "What the hell is this?" I approached the table calmly, picked up the email printout, and read it again, though I had memorized every word. Confidential, transfer of 37% ownership stake completed. Majority voting rights assigned to Emma Clark. Dad slammed his palm on the table. "That says majority rights, majority. Emma, majority puts you above me, above me." His voice cracked. I finally looked up. "It does," I said softly. Dalton spoke next, nervously adjusting his tie. "Emma, this isn't a prank, is it? Because your father—" Dad cut in again. "She stole my company!" I set the paper down. "No, Dad, I bought it." His eyes bulged, disbelief overshadowing rage. "You don't have that kind of money. You can barely afford your rent." I nodded once. "You're right. I don't have that kind of money alone." Reyes leaned forward, voice steady. "Emma, please explain, because the legal documents are real. They're signed, they're verified." Dad's voice broke. "You manipulated someone. You tricked them." The accusation hurt more than I expected. "I didn't manipulate anyone," I said quietly. "I negotiated." Reyes folded her hands. "With whom?" I inhaled slowly. "With Mr. Larson." Silence. Absolute silence. Dalton blinked rapidly. "Larson, as in shareholder Larson? Your father's partner who retired?" Dad stepped forward, voice barely above a whisper now. "You had talked to Larson?" "For months," I said. "How?" he croaked. "Because while you were busy telling me I wasn't built for business, he saw the potential you ignored. He watched my work with Grace in Transit. He saw my restructuring plans. He saw my pipeline systems. He saw the one thing you never did. I met his eyes. That I had value." Dad's breathing turned ragged. Reyes whispered, "He sold you his entire stake." "And assigned me his voting rights," I said. He said you needed someone who actually understood the digital market shift. Dad staggered back into a chair. For the first time in my life, he looked small. Dalton cleared his throat. This changes everything. Emma now determines most major decisions: budget approvals, project directions, hiring, expansion. Dad shot up. No, she will ruin this place. She doesn't understand our industry. She never. I grew up here, I said sharply, surprising even myself. I watched from the corners, from the background, from the places you shoved me into. My voice steadied. And I learned more than you think. Quiet people always learn more. Dad's jaw clenched. This isn't a game. You're not built for this. There it was again. The sentence he carved into me my entire life. I already proved I am. He scoffed bitterly. By doing some online freelancing? By tripling a distributor's revenue through digital integration. By modernizing small firms who were dying because they didn't adapt. By doing everything you refused to try. Dalton murmured, "She has a point." Dad glared at him. "Stay out of this." Reyes adjusted her glasses. "We should discuss the transition professionally." Dad snapped. "Transition? There will be no transition. I built this company from the ground up." "And I'm not taking it from you," I said softly. "I'm saving it." His mouth fell open. He didn't expect those words. I walked to the screen on the wall, connected my laptop, and brought up a dashboard, one he had never seen. Charts, projections, decline curves, supply chain failures, digital inefficiencies, lost contracts, risk flags. Dalton gasped. "Where did you get access to?" "Public indicators," I replied. "Trucker delays, warehouse logs, client movement. Anyone willing to look could see the pattern." Dad stared at the screen, face draining of color. "This is why Larson sold to you?" he whispered. "No," I said. "He sold because I had a plan." I clicked again. A full restructuring proposal appeared. Department modernization, system integration, digital onboarding, B2B marketing networks, warehouse automation partnerships. Reyes covered her mouth. "Emma, this is brilliant." Dalton nodded slowly. "This could actually keep us ahead of the collapse curve." Dad sank into his chair, silent. For the first time in my life, silence didn't scare me. He looked up at me with something I didn't expect. Fear. Pure, unmistakable fear. Emma?" His voice cracked. "You can't just come in here and act like you own this place." "I don't have to act," I said gently. I slid the final document forward. The new leadership structure. My name at the top. His name directly below mine. Not erased. Not replaced. But no longer unquestioned. Dad's hand shook as he pointed at it. You're taking my chair." "No," I said softly. "I'm taking my chance." Final part, 951,000 words. The next morning, I woke up before my alarm. My room was still dark, but my heartbeat was loud enough to feel like someone knocking from inside my chest. Today was the board meeting. Today, every hidden secret, every quiet betrayal, every word my family had ever used to reduce me would finally face the truth. I didn't choose a fancy outfit. No expensive heels, no dramatic lipstick. Just a clean white shirt and black trousers. The same combination I used to wear when I first dreamed of a career no one believed I deserved. When I reached the hotel conference hall, the long glass doors shimmered with reflections of people walking by. Inside, the room was already full. The board members sat around the oval table, flipping through documents, pretending to be calm while whispering among themselves. My father stood near the head chair with a tense smile, like a man practicing confidence because the real thing was missing. My mother scrolled her phone aggressively. Emily had her lips pressed so tightly together they almost disappeared. When I entered, everyone turned toward me, but not with surprise. With discomfort, as if I had walked in carrying the truth under my arm like a weapon. Dad cleared his throat. "You didn't need to attend, Harper. This isn't your scene." My scene. I almost laughed. For years, he acted like I was a misplaced prop in his precious business drama. Not today. "I'm a stakeholder," I said calmly. "So yes, this is very much my scene." Emily scoffed. "Stakeholder? Dad, did she seriously just say that?" But Dad didn't answer. He kept his eyes on me in a strange, unsettled way, like he was seeing something he wasn't prepared for. The meeting started, charts, slides, projections. Dad spoke quickly, confidently, explaining plans for the new real estate expansion. His voice was sharp, loud, rehearsed. He was expecting applause. Instead, Mr. Whitlock, the oldest board member, closed his folder and leaned back. Daniel, before we finalize anything, we need to address the outstanding matter. Dad stiffened. What matter? Whitlock's eyes shifted toward me. The entire room followed. My throat tightened, but I didn't break eye contact. Here we go. Whitlock folded his hands. The foreign investor who bought 38% of our shares last month. Her representative sent updated documentation last night. It seems... He paused, choosing every word slowly. It seems the investor is Harper Grant. Silence. The kind of silence that feels like the floor just cracked beneath everyone's feet. Mom whispered, No, that can't be right. Emily's face drained of color. Harper, what did you do? Dad blinked at me like I had personally rewritten reality. You? He said softly, almost breathlessly. You're the one who bought them? I nodded. Yes. His jaw tightened. But how? I worked, I answered simply. I saved. I partnered with 2 firms who believed in my proposal. And I bought the shares quietly because I knew you would sabotage it if you found out. Armando leaned forward. So technically, she has blocking power now? Whitlock nodded. Yes, no major decision can be passed without her approval. Dad's breathing quickened. It was the first time I had ever seen fear. Not anger, not disappointment. Fear. Living behind his eyes. He stepped toward me, voice shaking. You're trying to ruin me. No, I said softly. I'm trying to stop you from ruining yourself by dragging this company into projects meant to feed your ego, not the business. He opened his mouth to argue, but the words got stuck behind pride and panic. I continued louder this time. You kept saying I didn't deserve a seat at the table, so I built my own and brought it here. Emily's voice cracked. So now what? You're going to take everything from him? From us? I turned toward her. I never wanted to take anything. I just wanted respect. You all could have given it freely. Instead, you forced me to earn it in the hardest possible way. Whitlock cleared his throat. Shall we proceed? The vote began again, but this time, every eye flicked toward me before speaking their decision. Dad announced his plan, expecting usual compliance. Then Whitlock spoke. I vote against. Armando, against. 2 more members, against. Dad looked helplessly toward Emily, who avoided eye contact. Then the room fell quiet. Everyone waited for me. I looked directly at my father. You built a good company, but lately, you've been building it on fear and pressure, not vision. His eyes glistened. He wasn't crying, but he wasn't far from it either. I vote against, I said gently. Dad closed his eyes as if the word physically struck him. The motion failed. The project collapsed instantly. The meeting ended with murmurs, confusion, and shock. But my father didn't speak. He simply walked out of the conference hall like a man who'd just realized the world he controlled no longer fit in the palm of his hand. I stayed behind, breathing, processing. I had won, but I didn't feel victorious yet. When I finally stepped outside, Dad was sitting on a bench near the hallway window. Alone. Hands clasped, eyes staring at nothing. I sat beside him quietly. After a long minute, he whispered, I didn't know you could do all that. I didn't know either, I said honestly. Another silence, softer this time. I'm not good at praising, he muttered, or trusting, or letting go. I know. He exhaled shakily. I hurt you, more than I ever meant to. His voice trembled at the edges. And you didn't destroy me even when you could have. I didn't want to destroy you, I whispered. I wanted you to see me. He turned to me, and for the first time in my life, the disappointment in his eyes was gone. Replaced by something hesitant, unfamiliar, respect. I see you now, he said. The words landed like warmth after a lifetime of cold. We didn't hug. We didn't cry. But something healed quietly between us. Not perfectly. Not magically. But enough. Enough to start again. Enough to breathe without proving myself every second. Enough to finally feel like I belonged in my own family. And as I walked out of the hotel into the morning light, I knew one thing for certain. This wasn't revenge. This was reclamation. My life. My power. My voice. And for the first time, it was finally mine.